Hi everyone and welcome to Footy Talks for this Thursday lunchtime. Luke, Stephen and KJ with you. Great to have you with us either on the Facebook feed or on Zoom. A couple of guests coming up for you as always, including Toronto FC's Richie Laryea. And we'll also be joined by Janusz Michallik, who might be a familiar face if you watch some of our TSN Premier League or Champions League coverage in the past, but he's a former US international who has played at the highest level of the game here and also now works for a number of different places, including ESPN as well. In the footy world, there is lots to get into this week, but I think we start with the news breaking from Major League Soccer in the last 24 hours or so. KJ, Stevie, you were both with me on a conference call with the Major League Soccer Commissioner, Don Garber, yesterday. They've agreed the details on a CBA, which they really agreed before the season got underway, but needed to tinker with a little bit as they were moving forward and talk about what a return to play might look like. So now we know that this is agreed. And we know that Major League Soccer is coming back, and it's coming back in Disney, KJ, at the start of July.
Yeah, ultimately it's great news, isn't it, that football's back and soccer's back for MLS. And I think that, we can get into some of the stuff that was going on either side in a second. But ultimately the games are back. That's what fans are looking forward to. That's what we're all looking forward to as sports fans, that they're going to have matches back. There's clear that concessions have been made on both sides. The players, I think, deserve a tremendous amount of credit throughout this whole situation to remain united and also agreed to go away from their own environments right now to another area of, for some, another country, to be professional athletes and to be away for as much as 35 days. That's not an easy concession to make. I feel like that's forgotten about a little bit in all of this, that, oh, well, yeah, they're going to go down there. Of course they're going to go down there. They're paid decent money or for some, and they should do that. But that for me, that needs to be spoken about, Stevie, because particularly in this climate, I'm not going to go out and say that they're brave heroes or anything when we all know that who the people are on the front lines right now and all the health workers. But at the end of the day, the players had to make sure that what they got the answers were right from MLS to make sure that it was, adequate at best for them to go down there and make the decisions.
Yeah, I think that in fairness, the guys wanted to get back playing, KJ, but you're right, there was concerns. There's concerns around testing, around safety, around families being left at home in cities with not a lot of family infrastructure and support. All that has to come into it. So, I'm sure everyone will work together and they'll come up with an environment, like I said, for the families stuck at home to survive and to work through a difficult time when their husbands are away. But it's not an easy thing, is it? It's going to take some organising. It's going to take some communication between the league, between the players and between everybody else. So I could see their concerns with that for sure. I think it's been reduced from what was originally mentioned by MLS, and I totally understand that. You want to be there if they get to a final, these teams will be there for 35 days, we think, according to the commissioner. So, it's more than a month, and it's a quite a bit of time. But the other issues for me are vitally important as well. That it's awkward and complicated because this CBA was agreed before COVID-19 and it wasn't ratified. And so I can understand where the ownership and the league come from to get in the force majeure clause that we could talk about more at length, I guess. And I also can understand the players' concerns about what that force majeure might mean. Essentially for me, the big concern is that they could have went to Orlando, agreed to a small pay cut, in fairness. We think it's about 5%. And then the league could have been completely shut down because it may have been in the interests of the owners in terms of money. And I think that the guys wanted someone in that to protect themselves against that, to see that the league had the best intentions to get back to some form of a regular season beyond Orlando, hopefully in home markets, probably without spectators. I think that's fair to say. So a number of things at play here. I agree with you, KJ. Nobody won. We always try to decide who wins in bargaining agreements. So they won and they lost. And I've been part of one myself in 2015, was it? Must have been. And so I know that nobody wins. And you always feel like you left things on the table and you feel like you won certain things. So I think with this one, it was particularly difficult. And I feel that the game of football was front of everyone's mind to get back to playing soccer. And I'm glad that we're going to be doing that in Orlando sometime soon.
Don Garber spoke for around an hour when he talked to the media yesterday lunchtime, and said a number of different things about the whole process, including the fact that by the end of all this, and MLS is not unique by any means, but they're going to lose over $1 billion between everybody within the league and all the different clubs. But he was asked specifically about the reports that came out over the weekend that MLS could be facing a lockout, and that the deadline was given to the players. If they didn't agree by originally Tuesday at 12, then it was Wednesday at 12, he would lock them out. And he came out and said, absolutely, that was his decision to say that there could be a lockout. It was the way that he thought he could get this across the line and to move forward and to have a deal where MLS can return to play and also protect his parties that he's fighting for moving forward as well. But Stevie, and get KJ's thoughts in a minute, but you've been in that room as one of those players, and Don Garber said at times it got a little fractious between everybody. And on one call, I can only imagine what it was like. He said he was there on a call with over 300 players at once when they were all trying to have their say. Not easy at the best of times, especially in these circumstances, but from some of the players who've come out and talked since, including your old pal, former teammate Daniel Lovitz, he was talking from a Nashville perspective yesterday. The players, I think, feel this wasn't quite handled as they would have wanted, and they were very surprised when Don Garber came out and started throwing the word lockout around.
Yeah, look, I'm going to stick up for MLS a little bit here in terms of these guys were getting paid full salary and it was taking too long to get to an agreement. So I can see why Commissioner Garber went to lockout and started to band that word around and set deadlines, because he wanted this to be agreed or to come to some kind of closure so that we can move forward and we can play football. So I think that has to be recognised. But I can also see why the guys would be annoyed at that. I think that this essentially was agreed, and then different clauses start coming in. The whole landscape changes. Everybody's in a stressful situation right now. COVID-19's put us all up here with different issues, personally, professionally, and everything's going on. So I can't even imagine, because like I said, when I was involved in my talks, and you're trying to represent your club. So you're representing 25 to 30 people within that room, and everyone has their own issues that are really important to them within their market. And so it is an incredibly tense and complicated process to go through. And this time, I think, was to the extremes, just because of the virus and where we all are financially, professionally, and personally, I guess. So an awkward one for sure, but I have to say I can see why Don Garber went there, and I think if he hadn't went there, this would probably still be dragging on. So essentially, he did the right thing. He gambled a little bit, KJ, but it seems like it was the right thing to do, wasn't it?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I guess I guess a lot of this comes down to whether how much weight you put in the relationship going forward between the league and the players. And Don Garber addressed this yesterday on our call, where he said, I'm not putting words in his mouth, I'm summarizing, but he basically said that there's a group of players that have had issues with Major League Soccer for quite a number of years. And those group of players continue to be the same players. And I read from that no matter what they were going to do, they were going to have to challenge those players anyway. So I think, those relationships were already strained before going in. And of course, they're strained now. And I do believe, hearing from a lot of players around the league, that there's a lot more gone towards that side right now. Now, Major League Soccer may not care too much about that at the moment, and they're okay to do that. The one thing I would say, and I'm not a negotiator, far from it, but there's not, for me, a great deal of difference apart from the approval from what MLSPA sent to them on the Sunday night to how it concluded. There's not a drastic change in how that was ratified. So for me, that is drastic, threatening players to be locked out. You went to the extreme of the extreme in a very tense and an emotional time, and I understand that. And I think that's, listening to some of the players, that players were really hurt by that. Now, they stood united in it, and then in the end, I think, looking at it, you're right, there's no winners. It was like a scoring draw, if you want to put it out there. But from Sunday night to the moment they agreed, I think the players probably, from that moment when they were threatened to lockout, I think they can look back on it and be very proud of themselves for what they achieved and what they accomplished, because they were losing their livelihoods at one point, and there was a threat was real. And then they came through it, and they made some concessions, of course, and they deserve a lot of credit for that, I think.
I think, sorry to interrupt, Luke, but I think an interesting thing to recognise here is, guys, that there's a little bit of, you call it the haves and have-nots, KJ, and it's the best way to describe it when you think of the franchises within MLS, but that came into play here. There was a few ownership groups got on the phone and said, let's get back to playing football, let's make this agreement. Others maybe wanted it to drag out and were potentially keen on a lockout. So let's keep an eye on that, because that gap's only going to get bigger, in my opinion. You know, there's these up-and-coming new franchises, the winning franchises, we all know who they are, I don't need to name them. And then there's the other ones who are just kind of treading water a little bit. And I think that the big boys as such put their foot down here, and that's what got us to this agreement.
Yeah, I agree.
On the Zoom chat, Matthew says, in this environment, an agreement was made that people can accept, and that's a win for everybody in my books. If you want to get in touch, you can with us on the Zoom chat. If you're on the Facebook live feed, you'll need to head across to Zoom to be able to get in touch with us on the show. Yeah, we talk about a call with 300 plus players, and trying to get everybody on the same page there is one thing, but in a different way, Don Garber having to marshal 26 different ownership groups, all whom have their own agendas and different reasons for saying why they are saying things, as we've seen in England with different clubs talking about what they want, how they want to finish the season. It often comes in depending where they are in the table. If they're fighting for promotion, relegation, mid-table, everyone has a different view. So to get everyone on the same page at this time, it's quite remarkable, really, when you think about everything that needed to fall into place. But now we're going to, they're going to Orlando at the start of July to get this thing going again. And we've talked a lot about what this tournament might look like, KJ, but from what Evan Bush said on the Montreal conference call yesterday, as details were trickling out, he says it's going to pretty much mirror a World Cup where we go 3 in a group and then round of 16, quarterfinal, semis and a final. Wait and see when everything plays out, if that's exactly the case when it's all announced. But it's an exciting way for MLS to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think, we're all excited. We're all craving for that competitive environment. The players are too. I think the biggest thing for me is that we're all going to play a part in this. People listening to this, the fans, the media, the players, the coaches, the MLS, how everything is covered. For me, it's very important that it doesn't turn into being, and forgive me for the pun, a Mickey Mouse mid-season tournament.
Come on, KJ.
Do you know what I mean? That's what I mean by that. I just think it's very important that it becomes serious. And, it might be, it's easy for us to say, okay, well, these guys haven't played for a while. I'm not talking about necessarily the competitiveness right away and the tactical movement and but for me, it's how it's covered. A game is a game is a game. It's a league match. The games that start right away, game one of the tournament is a league match. And we're all hoping that that's going to count towards regular season standings. And the way it's covered needs to be treated that way, Stevie. I think that above anything else right now, that's in the forefront of my mind, because then the tournament will develop and other people will get chances, and then it will get more competitive as it goes along. But from day one, from the moment it comes out, I think that's crucial.
Yeah, the professionalism is essential, KJ. I agree. I think that the relevance of these games has to be rammed home, and we're going to find out what the kind of benefits. We know there's a monetary benefit. I think there's like $1 million, I think you said, for the winning team. But what are the benefits of finishing in certain positions towards, yes, the end of the season if we get to that? But we may not get to that. So there may be Champions League places at stake here, semi-finals and onwards. So I think all of that's critically important. I agree with you. The overall broadcast as well needs to look top. The Bundesliga, it's always going to be strings. There's no fans, but we saw from the Bundesliga that these guys are competitive. They're right into it. I get the feeling that these are real games. We need that to happen with this tournament at Disney.
Yeah.
And I think we have to recognise that these guys go here to play Mickey Mouse, as you say, pre-season friendlies in February. So there will be that feel of, this is just pre-season. The message needs to be clear. This is not pre-season. This is about getting right into it. The broadcasting needs to look professional, needs to look, more robust. And then these guys, I think, will get that competitive spirit, and the juices will start flowing, and they'll get right into it. And hopefully we'll have a really successful tournament. It may change the way that we see MLS in the years to come. And I'm excited to try something new and just to get back to playing football. And I know some of the guys I've spoke to, friends of mine throughout the league, they're just desperate to get back to playing football at this point.
There is the possibility that some players won't be there. You talked a bit about that on the Sports Centre piece we did yesterday, KJ, on TSN. And unless there's an extenuating circumstance, Don Garber has said all the players are expected to be in Orlando for this tournament, but there are some who have health reasons or expecting a newborn child. Although I saw Chicharito, it was reported yesterday, he's got to go, even though his partner is expecting a child coming. But as Stevie said, it's not an ideal situation, but at this moment in time, it's for the players who just want to get back playing, it's probably the best that could be done. And who knows what it leads to in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And I think most people want to go at this point. Of course, they know it's not an ideal situation. Of course, you'd like to play it in your own market, but I think they're going to go. And then, these guys are professionals. They're going to get down there. It's going to switch on. They're going to be focused and they're going to be ready to go. From what I'm hearing around the league, I think Jeff Laryea said today that if players don't go and there's no legitimate reason from it, then they'll be considered as holdouts. So, there is strict things on one side for that. But I think, look, there's sensitivity on both sides here. Let's be honest. I think common sense needs to prevail. If there's certain circumstances that families are impacted by it, birth of a child is right at the top of the list. There's going to be others. And a player isn't able to go for that reason, and it's okay by his club and it's okay by the league, then it should be okay to stay back. Chicharito said he's going. We don't know about Carlos Vela. Quinton Westberg, who we've had on the show in the past, his wife is pregnant. I've spoken to him recently. He still doesn't know yet because he's still trying to figure out the dates, the situation. We heard yesterday now that the MLS have relaxed that a little bit and said, if you're able to come down later and train in your own markets competitively close to, then you can come down really close to the start of the tournament. That helps the players because then they're less time away. So they can get there on the eve of a match or a couple of days before a match as if they're flying to Orlando for a game rather than going down and training for 7 or 8 days prior to the match. That's a big win for the players as well. So, look, I think each situation needs to be handled in its own environment, in an isolated situation. And, common sense has to prevail. That's clear.
Still waiting for Richie Laryea to join us, and Janusz Michallik will be coming on the show a little later on as we talk a little bit more about the European side of things. Of course, lots of leagues gearing up to come back. We've talked a lot about the Bundesliga the last few weeks, but Premier League, Championship in England getting set to return. La Liga is on the way back very soon as well, and now Major League Soccer joins them as well. So in this situation, and we've had, Stevie, a lot of people on this show from Toronto FC over recent weeks. And we've had a couple of chats with Ali Curtis, with Greg Vanny as well, and the chat we did with the TFC members a couple of weeks ago, and Bill Manning. Everyone was pretty excited heading into the season. Everyone was pretty satisfied with the squad that had been built, the depth that was within that squad, and now an opportunity maybe that depth will be added to because you've got Pablo Piatti potentially being able to come back in, Michael Bradley as well, who would have missed the last 2 or 3 months with injury, who is close to being able to return to a full team training situation. How are TFC tooled up in terms of heading to Orlando and what they have to do against the top teams in the East to try and, they're not going down there to play 3 group games and come home. They want to be there till the very end, start of August, and play in that final.
Yeah, they'll be in it to win it. There's no doubt about that. I think they're pretty confident in the squad that they've got and the pieces that they have there, and I think they're relishing getting into games and getting back to playing because they feel that they've improved from last year. They of course made it to the final. They got a little bit better for the summer onwards, but I think they feel that they've came through the winter, added a couple of pieces, look stronger as a squad in general. So where do I rate them? I think they're pretty strong. I think their first 11 is up there with most. I think that they're lacking a little bit in the striker department when it comes to cover. I don't see a lot behind Jose Altidore in terms of real quality. No disrespect to anybody who's there, but I think they're needing someone in that sort of position. And I think that they've had some real sort of finds with guys like Endo doing quite well. Schaffelberg did okay when he was playing in San Jose, and some effective performances from guys like that. So when you add in Pablo Piatti and Michael Bradley and you start to see competition for places, maybe a little bit light at the central defence if something goes wrong with Mavinga or Omar Gonzalez, I think they're pretty strong, KJ. I think that they're, like I said, very confident and feeling like they're a match for anybody.
Yeah, I just keep this brief because so we get Richie on. But I would say I completely agree with everything. The thing that they've got an advantage over most teams is that they did a lot of their shopping last season. So they came, at the end of the season, they were very together. Obviously, Piatti came in. There wasn't much upheaval. For example, Seattle watching Seattle at the start of the season look completely different to the way that they won that. Ladero was injured, and obviously he's coming back, but they've made some big changes there. They've lost some key players, and that's MLS Cup champions. So I think, look, if TFC go down there, from what I'm hearing, they'll be one of the seeds in terms of the groupings, and maybe not the first seed, but the second, maybe, in terms of how that's going to be handled. So yeah, I think they'll be strong favourites to try at least get through the group and then move on. And we know what this team can do in knockout, one and done kind of soccer, as they say over here.
Richie Laryea is with us on this Thursday lunchtime Footy Talks, a TFC player, Canadian international, of course, and someone who, as you talk about those big moments that TFC have experienced over the last couple of years, wasn't around before the start of last season, but came in and made a huge impact in the games that he was involved in down the stretch and in the playoffs for TFC last season as they made it all the way to MLS Cup against Seattle. Of course, up until this week, it was only individual training allowed by Major League Soccer. And now players are allowed to have a bit more of a group training. Hey, Richie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing? Thank you.
Good. Thanks for agreeing to be with us today and chat. A momentous week for a number of reasons. We were talking at the start of the show, though, about Major League Soccer coming back, the CBA being agreed. Was it a feeling of relief when that agreement came after what was a day or 2 or 3 days of, it seemed, the league and PA going back and forth on a number of different occasions?
Yeah, it was definitely a very good feeling because a lot of us are stuck at home for 3 months or so, and the voluntary training didn't start up until maybe a few weeks ago. So it made me realize all I do is play football and hang around my house. So I needed to get out of the house immediately. So I stopped driving my wife and my little man crazy.
Listen, we've all missed it. And I said to Stevie, like the last few weeks, I've missed it more than ever. You don't realize until something is taken away from you how much it's actually part of your life, and your life in a number of different aspects is built around it.
No, I agree with that. I was having a discussion with also actually. We were speaking and we were like, when is this thing going to end? Because it'll just, a week would pass by, another week would pass by, a month would pass by. I was like, okay, I think we're in this for the long haul now, but it's definitely nice to see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. We'll be doing some soccer stuff very soon.
Richie, great to see you. I want to ask you, we're going to get to a few other things a little bit later on. If you don't mind, we'll talk a little bit about the social unrest that's happening right now as well. But I want to ask you first and foremost, how are you doing? And then what are you looking forward to in terms of now the plans are starting to come out about this tournament style in Orlando, obviously a city that you're quite familiar with. How excited are you to go down there and battle in a tournament style when you think your team will probably do very well in it?
Yeah, I think all of us are excited. We've all spoken very highly of this opportunity because we know that it will lead into season play when and if or whenever that happens. It'll lead into that. And then I think a lot of guys have done what they need to do to stay fit, and guys look really good. So it was pretty easy from day one to get back into things because guys really stayed on top of it. And then to go back to Orlando would be good. I've used to it. I don't know if the guys are gonna like the weather that we're gonna be welcomed with for the amount of weeks that we're gonna be there, but yeah, I think it's gonna be good, and it'll be good for us moving into the season because I think we have a very good chance to win it all again this year, especially with the way we started the first 2 games.
Richie, I'd love to ask you, Stephen here, thanks for coming on, mate. It's great to see you. I'd like to ask you about, you went to Orlando, 7th draft pick, and it never quite worked out there. And then you got the chance to come home, and it's just went from strength to strength for you since you're back in Toronto with TFC. So, I want to ask you what your mentality is there and how much you're enjoying your football right now. And then a little bit about that kind of change in position to the right back role, how you feel you've adapted to that, and kind of what's left, what's out there, what's more for you to come in that right back position.
Yeah. I think getting drafted to Orlando and spending those 3 years there, it was very good for me. Even though I didn't play as much as I needed to, I think it was a rude awakening for me, 1, and 2, it was a big learning lesson for me. So apart from not playing, I think I have to take those 2 things away, and it made me learn a lot about myself at times when I could have threw in the towel or maybe not done things the proper way. I think I was still doing them to the best of my ability or the best that I knew how, and I think it also exposed me to learning a new sort of professionalism about myself on what I need to do on the field, off the field, and stuff like that. So I think I take it as it was 3 years to prep me for what I'm now doing. And then to come here was a dream come true, obviously, to play for this club. As we all know, it's one of the better organizations around the league, and to come in and see how united and well knitted the group was from day one was really nice to see. From the top guys all the way down to the very young guys, it was nice to see that everyone cared for each other. So I think it helped my transition very easily, and I knew a good amount of the Canadians already on the team, so it was a pretty smooth transition for me. And then to go and play right back, it was I tell this story every single time someone tells me about the right back position, but I played against UC Irvine's college team, and I had just played 90 minutes at number 8, and then I was sitting on the bench. I was like, okay, it's kind of hot. I can get a breathe in now. And then Greg comes to me. He's like, oh, hey, RO actually can't go right now, so we don't have another right back here. We think you could probably be pretty decent at it. You want to give it a go? I was like, I mean, I don't have a contract, so of course I'll run through a wall. So I get up and I go play. He's like, no pressure, just go have fun. We know it's not your position. It'll be okay. So I played, and I was like, oh, you know what? I think I did okay. Obviously, things could have been better. It's my first time playing there, but whatever, we'll be okay. After the game, no one really said anything to me, so I was like, okay, I'm good. And then the next day in the meal room, Robin Fraser does the film and absolutely annihilates me. Every single, what are you doing there? What kind of touch was that? Why are you only looking to go backwards? You need to break the. I was like, wow, I thought this was a favor I was doing for you guys. Like, I'm out there for another 45, and you're killing me in front of guys that I don't know, and I don't have a contract. So, no, me and Robin have a good relationship. So I always tell that story, and I speak to him till this day. So I think that right there really helped me moving forward, because I thought I'm never going to be humiliated like that ever again in front of my teammates ever again.
So what was that learning experience like in terms of dropping to right back, Richie? And from that day when you got pushed into it unexpectedly, and then Robin having a word with you the day after, telling you what was and wasn't good about the performance.
A few words.
How did you go from there to being such an effective starting right back in Major League Soccer so quickly? What were the steps?
Yeah, I mean, I have to give a big kudos to those guys, because they stayed with me after countless amount of sessions, practicing my crossing, defensively, positioning, which things I think I picked up pretty quickly, but I still think I have a very large margin on things that I can still learn about the position till this day. But they really took advantage of the time that we had together, and I think it worked out perfectly for me, because I learned all these little things I didn't even think mattered in terms of football. And, you know, I wasn't keen on defending before, or had to I wasn't the guy that had to, if the ball got by me, I was like, okay, there's about 6 other guys behind me, I'd be good. But now it's like, if someone gets by me, this could end up in a goal. So that's what kind of they had to put into my head, that like, listen, it's not, okay, if I win the ball, great. If not, whatever. It's like, no, if you don't win this ball, it can end up in a goal, a cross, a penalty, you know, who knows? So there's a lot of film that I did, a lot of, especially with Jason Benz, me and him watched a lot of different right backs around the world. He would show me good clips, bad clips. So just stuff like that. And I took it upon myself to really challenge myself, because I was like, okay, if I'm here, and I know this is a position they want me to play, there's only one other right back. Let me just give my full undivided attention to this thing and see how it goes.
Richie, the next game of the week for Toronto FC is actually the game last year in New York, when they played, obviously, in the playoffs, NYCFC, and you were enormous in the playoffs in different roles. And that day, obviously, you play a big role in. Everyone now talks about the penalty and the swearing afterwards, but let's talk about the real architect of that, Richie Laryea, who creates the penalty. Take us through that, because you went by Matarrita, and you'd already done that already that season as well, where you got the best of him in another game. Was that in your mind at that point? Talk us through when you get on that field and that play that led to the penalty.
Yeah, I mean, I just put myself in his position, because I've been a starter in games where I then see a fresh winger coming in. I'm just like, okay, here we go. He's going to be running at me all game. I know in my head, that's what I'm thinking. So I know when he sees me, he's probably thinking the exact same thing. He's just like, okay, here we go. This kid's back again. So I just took it upon me. I think I maybe played no more than 10 minutes in that game. So I was like, okay, I know it could have went to extra time, but I was like, let me use this 10 minutes to really try to get after him, try to break him down and see how things go. So yeah, I think that might have been my second take on of the game, if I recall correctly. And
Right.
I got by him, and then I was like, okay, got by him. Let me see what's in the box. And I look up in the box. I'm like, no, I don't know if you can look back at the video. No one's even really open in the box, to be honest with you. Pat's covered, Oso's covered. Ale actually played me the ball, so he's the striker. He's all the way 20 or 10 yards behind me. So I'm just like, okay, what do I do now? Just smash it on goal. And then I just felt him nick me. I was like, brilliant. And then I just ended up on the ground, and then got the penalty for the team.
Great story.
It's just that way that you get that extra touch to it every time, Richie. You know, you have that ability to dribble and to entice people into challenges. You know, you talked about your defending in the right back there, and you know, I've had the pleasure of working with you and working through these things, but your strength is that attacking, isn't it? It's getting forward on that right-hand side. It's being positive. Is that something that Greg Vanney reiterates to you every day, that, you know, you're in that position, or you play in the wide right area because what you can produce as a dribbler and as a creative force as well?
Yeah, that was probably the hardest part for me when I first started, because I was getting, I think, in very good positions even early on in the season, but I was scared to not scared, I was a little bit hesitant to keep going, because, you know, you look up, you see guys like Josie, Paz, Mike, and it's my first instinct at the time. I was just like, okay, let me just give it off to these guys and go. And then I remember one game, Josie just looked at me. He's like, Richie, you're killing him. Don't pass me the ball. Keep going, and you'll make something of it. So then I think it was me getting that clarification, or the thumbs up and the okay from him. As big as the player as he is, I was like, okay, like let me do this myself sometimes then, and be a little bit more selfish in certain situations. So I think once I started doing that, I think it brought a lot more to my game.
Richie, it's not been an easy week for MLS in terms of the CBA and the players trying to get through to this point with Orlando, but that all pales into insignificance, and the game does as a whole with regards to what has been going on, the social unrest around the world, starting with the tragic death of George Floyd a week ago. And we've all been watching on, incredulous at what has been happening, and a real uprising to try and all get around a similar cause. You have been one of the players who has been very vocal about this as of yesterday when you tweeted out. I just want to bring this up now because it's important that we shine a light on this and talk about what you are feeling right now and what you've had to say on Twitter yesterday, when one of the it was a brilliantly crafted piece that you put on Twitter, and anyone who hasn't seen it, find Richie Laryea's Twitter, please go on and read what you have to say in detail. But how is it possible that in 2020 we're still dealing with so much hate and disparity towards Black people? I clearly don't have the answers, but I've been looking and searching tirelessly to find them. And then at the end, I'm by no means supporting the violence or looting going on right now. In light of these recent events, I believe it's time we all stand together and fight against racial prejudice and continue to educate, learn, and have these conversations to bring about the necessary change in the world. And I think we would all absolutely 100% agree with that and everything you said within your statement. But as someone who has lived through this, not just in Canada, but in the United States as well, what has it been like for you the last 7 days or so?
Yeah, it's been tough, to be honest, just because for me, I look at that, and now with a son, it's my dad had those conversations with me when I was here, and I think Canada's pretty good about things. We're not perfect, but I would say this country has it maybe better than a lot of other countries do. But my dad had that conversation with me when I was growing up here, and then he had it again with me again when I was going off to the States. And, you know, I was, I think, so naive at the time. I didn't even realize what he was really even saying to me, and if it even made sense. And I was like, where is this guy coming from? Like, this doesn't exist. And, you know, you hear about the stories, but you don't really think stuff like this would happen to you. So then, yeah, I think what brought it to light for me and why I wanted to share a lot of stuff was because of my son. I know that I have to have a conversation like this with him somewhere down the line, I was seeing an 8-year-old girl online going through situations with her dad, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, she's 8. She shouldn't be thinking about what to do when police are near her, when she's around a certain group of people. It's crazy to me. So I think all of that stuff made me want to speak out, because I think a lot of people don't know, and I think I have a platform to show people that change can be brought about, and we shouldn't still be living in this in a world like we're living in the early 1900s or something like that. So yeah, it's been difficult. I definitely feel for the people that are protesting very peacefully and not really being heard, and as they've done for years. And like I said, I don't support or condone this the riots and the looting, because that's obviously not doing anything for the people that are trying to peacefully get their word across. So it's I think a very tricky situation, but I think also the outpour of support from a lot of white people that I've seen has been amazing. I think this is the first time you see everyone as a collective group get behind one cause, which has been pretty nice to see.
Richie, I just want to thank you, first of all, for your post and for those words and for allowing us to have this conversation. For me, my heart's broken in all this, and I can't even imagine what it's like for you. I'm not, I see you, I love you for who you are, and that's it. And I would say that, I could talk to you about this for hours, and maybe one day we will, and maybe that can somehow help somebody. What can we do here on a soccer show for soccer? Soccer is incredulous in terms of its acts of racism. My heart hurts when I watch Antonio Rudiger claim that he's being racistly, from abuse from fans in December, not just a few months ago in the Premier League, and then comes off the field and everybody wants to just talk about his bad tackle instead of that. And for me, that's wrong right away. That's just my own thoughts and covering the game. What can soccer do, not just Major League Soccer, but what do you think we can do as a game to continue to help this?
Yeah, I think especially in Europe, I haven't encountered a situation yet here in the MLS or in North America, but I would say in Europe, I don't know, maybe more of a penalty for these clubs that have fans that do these do the monkey chants or whatever it may be. More of a penalty, and maybe the players on that team also being vocal on their platforms. The guys that aren't of color, they can get on their platforms and tell these fans who adore them, they're their idols, to be like, hey, like this isn't fair. So I think from that standpoint, it would have to come a lot from the players. And I actually think I saw Kimmage write something on it earlier today where he was saying, us as players, we need to be a bigger voice. And I think he's 100% right, especially in Europe. The game is so powerful. So if you hear someone like Messi or Ronaldo or whoever it may be on a repetitive basis hammering into their fans about how racism shouldn't be allowed, not only in stadiums, just anywhere at all. So I think if it doesn't have to be guys of that magnitude, but like maybe guys around the clubs that have a tendency for being a little bit racist and whatnot, those players get into the fans. And, I've seen instances where players are condoning, trying to calm down, and the black athlete who's being racially abused. But maybe while you're doing that, also guys are going to the crowd and, having words with them and not being as nice about it to them. So I think until stuff like that happens more regularly, I don't think much will change.
My view is, just a quick point there, is that we've never been severe enough, as a group, as a team, whether it be in England or in Eastern Europe or anywhere. And the players should be walking off that field from this day forward. And my thoughts here are, this has been an appalling week for everyone concerned. And you're coming on our show, and we thank you for it, Richie. And your post was exceptional, the way that you worded that. And you're on a show here with 3 middle-aged white men with not a racist bone in our bodies. But this week has made everybody figure, am I doing enough? What can I do more? And I guess I'm going to ask you maybe a really difficult question to answer, but how can we do more? Is it more mass? Is it more peaceful protests? Is it education? Is it, telling young people to vote, white and black and Asian and Hispanic? Everyone needs to vote, because we, as a globe, as a world, I should say, need stronger leaders. We need better figureheads to actually move us through this extremely difficult time. Is that your opinion as well, or what's the kind of short and then maybe medium term goals for us as a country in North America, or indeed the world, to move forward?
Yeah, I think you hit a lot of very, very good points. And I think one of them is you guys doing what you guys are doing now. You know, you're speaking with people, and I know Steven better than the two of you, but I know you guys as well. You guys are very good people and would never do anything like that. So I think you guys being who you guys are already is enough for us at least. You know, I feel comfortable around you guys. I don't ever suspect anything of that nature at any time around you guys, or I would say even a lot of people that I've met here in Canada. So I feel like you guys doing what you guys are doing. And like Christian said, as soon as I came on, you see me for who I am, not for, oh, he's black, he's white. You see me for Richie, not oh, that's a black kid, or, you know, whatever it may be. So that's, for me, that's good enough. And yes, and I think kids growing up now need to understand it as well, that they don't need to be, just because maybe their parents are like that, it doesn't mean they have to be like that. And I've actually had conversations with people who have told me like, yeah, my parents are a little bit old school, but I'm nothing for it. So it's nice, you know. So there's people that even though they're young, they know what's right and what's wrong. And even though their parents don't condone it or aren't accepting of everyone as of right now, at least the kid is. So I think with the generations to come, I hope it doesn't take too long, but this is, I would love to say eliminated, but I don't think that'll be the case for a while now, but at least toned down to a much less degree than what it is right now.
Richie, we really appreciate you coming on today to talk about everything, but especially this at this moment in time. You were going to be on anyway to talk about the New York City game, which now TFC is showing next week. It was great to talk to you about that. But this is so important that we are able to have these conversations in the open. And I thank you from all of us for just being honest and open and vulnerable and being able to talk to us about this, and for what you wrote again on Twitter yesterday, and for all the TFC fans listening as well. One of the ways that we can do a small part is by talking about this. So thanks for being with us today to do that, Richie, and all the best. And hey, let's hope we see you in Orlando very soon, and that you are back on the pitch being that attacking, goal-scoring right back that you've become in the space of 12 months.
Thank you guys very much. I enjoyed speaking with you guys and touching on all these topics. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Richie. We appreciate you.
Take care.
Richie Laryea of TFC with us on Footy Talk. Still to come, we've got Janusz Michallik coming on. So important for us to be able to hear from Richie today. And for him to talk about that in a situation that has been difficult for a lot of people. I mean, over the last few days. As I said at the start, yes, we want MLS to be back. Yes, a lot of people were happy that the CBA was agreed and that Orlando is happening. But really, it's irrelevant compared to what this world is all about and what Richie was just talking about, KJ.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, for him to come on there on a platform like that, where some people are going to take every word he says, is not easy. I've said this time and time again, it doesn't matter what it's about. It never loses my sight as a member of a media when I ask somebody to speak on the record that it's not necessarily their easiest way of doing it. It takes great bravery in any regard, whether you're just jumping off the field at a football match after 45 minutes and coming to talk to me about the way you just played. That is not necessarily something that every player wants to do and does do. And so that's something that comes natural to them to talk about that. This is not something that comes natural to everybody, no matter what race, no matter what we look, we all look like. I've spoken to people this week, some players who've been very passionate about talking to me about it, and some players who rightfully don't want to talk about it because they're not sure about how the wording would go. And that's perfectly fine. Everybody has a right to their own abilities to be able to speak publicly or not speak publicly about it. But Stevie, I thought Richie was very eloquent, very passionate in his own way that he did it. It's certainly a conversation that I would like to extend to others going forward. This will not be forgotten on the mediums and the platforms that we have. And we will continue this conversation.
Yeah, that's the key, KJ. We have to continue this. It's not going to be fixed. Richie's right. We're not going to come to an answer in the next week or months or even year. It's going to take a long time, and there's a lot of education that needs to come for a lot of people, no matter where you think you are within the spectrum. We all need to be educated here how we can move this forward, you know. And I really hope that the young people watching particularly, you know, go out and vote, go out and learn about your local elections, your provincial elections, your national elections here in Canada, wherever you live. If you're in the States, of course, it's absolutely imperative. Go and learn how, register, go and vote, and have the leaders in charge that we want to move this country forward and shape where we're going to go, because this has been an awful week. Some of the things we've seen and we've heard are just, you know, they'll never leave you. They'll be with you till the day that you die. And this is happening to far too many people. And I think that, you know, I commend Richie, and I'm glad he could come on and talk about it. Us three guys are talking about it. Everybody, have a conversation with your neighbour, with your family, with your friends. Let's get this conversation rolling along so that we can really, you know, create change and find a brighter future for our kids and their kids as we move forward.
Yeah, and different athletes obviously have a bigger platform and are using it. And Kai Kamara, former Whitecaps striker, was posting pictures last night of him involved in one of these peaceful protests that happened. So yeah, if you're a Major League Soccer fan as well, there is plenty of content that is out there from players who are describing what they are going through, why it's happening, and what they think needs to be done as well. So people listen, read, find out about the situation, and hopefully we can start to move forward. Again, thanks to Richie for coming on. Every week we have these guests on and we say we could go on for hours, and certainly just on that one topic with Richie, we could have filled the whole show. But we didn't even get on to how over the last year, it's not just been for Toronto FC that his career has started to move forward. It's been on the Canadian national team setup as well. A great story all around for Richie Laryea, who had to fight for that contract. But I'd never heard the Robin Fraser story before, as he was thrown in there at right back just in that pre-season game as he was trying to earn the contract. Major League Soccer's on the way back. So are a lot of leagues around the world. And we always joke that KJ knows pretty much everything there is to know about every league there is around the world, whether it's Europe, whether it's Korean league, whatever it is.
Emphasis on the word joke, because it's just not true.
No, it is. And another man who knows a lot about a lot of different things, and he'll tell you himself, is
he knows a lot more than me.
We know Janusz well. He's a colleague of ours from, hey, Janusz, how are you?
How's it going, guys?
Good to see you, Janusz.
Former international, of course, who has now made a very successful career in the media. He's been north of the border with TSM when we used to have the Premier League and Champions League shows and some of the big tournaments, and worked for ESPN and pretty Fox, everybody, I think, in the United States there. Janusz, how are you?
I am doing well. I'm bored out of my mind, to be quite honest. I'm not very good at this, you know. My wife's upstairs. I'm gonna start talking quietly because, you know, at least if I was the sort of person that can do stuff around the house, you know, I keep busy. But unfortunately, I'm not. It is, you know, it was just soccer. You know, father played, and just I wish it was different. You know, you know my son probably a little bit. I'm trying to tell him differently now. Maybe too late already. But anyway, it's all good. I actually came back to work yesterday for the first time in 3 months, which was a little bit of a surprise because we didn't see it coming. But they're starting to kind of get us. It was a Porto against a small team that just moved up. I already forgot their name. My goodness. Maybe KJ knows more.
They won, didn't they?
It's a George Mendes team, you know.
Porto lost, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They did. You know, amazing story there because George Mendes is in charge of that, just like Wolves and Forest, and so it was good to be back. It was a little bit different, I have to tell you, in different booths, but at this point, I'm sure you guys would take anything. Calling the game from your own house probably be just as good.
Yeah, and that's happened a few times in England now, with the BT Sport are calling the German Bundesliga games from their house. And we talked a couple of weeks ago with Derek Ray, fascinating insight from him about one of the commentators in England who was interrupted midway through the first half of one of the Bundesliga games because the grocery store was banging on his door to drop off his weekly delivery. They wouldn't shut up, so he had to run down the stairs as the game.
That's awesome. I didn't hear that story. That's great.
Yeah. We see now that things are starting to move forward, but it's not going to be the same. Major League Soccer, of course, is going to Orlando. Do you like that idea of MLS coming back with the tournament?
I just like the idea that Major League Soccer is back. I mean, this is the 25th season anniversary, right? I mean, I'm one of the originals that was there in 1996. I was looking forward to this season immensely, not just calling some games, but just watching it. You know, I'm a big fan. I'm a big supporter because, you know, it's my league. And I remember when I first came here and, you know, I only played indoor soccer. There was no real football, if you will, not something that I was used to growing up. And once that league came in, and we truly even then kind of saw that this is different. This is for real. The leagues that I was a part of before that, they were just folding midway through the season or maybe lasted 1 year. And this was different. So it's hard to see not to play or whatever, 2 games. And so I guess I'll take it. It is in Orlando, maybe not ideal, but if you look at how vast this country is and with everything that we know now about the pandemic, the flights, of course, themselves, how long they are and all that stuff, then it just makes sense, I suppose, to put it somewhere. They picked Orlando. Yeah, as good as any, I suppose, for me. So I'm very happy that the league is back.
Janusz, as a former player and a broadcaster, take us back to the games, obviously, of last year. Everyone talks about the league of growth now and how quickly it's grown. What's grown the most and what surprised you the most over this last few years in MLS?
Look, I mean, when it first started, I remember, you know, in dressing rooms, we were always like, I don't want to say we were non-believers, but if you asked me then that we're going to be here talking 25 years later, I was very skeptical. I was, maybe because I was preconditioned by all the promises that were being made in all the leagues that I've played in. I've played, you know, the A League, the MISL League, the APS, I forget the name because there's just so many different ones. And I mean, I remember once winning in Louisville, which was a great team, Louisville Thunder. Zoran Savic was the assistant now with Sporting Kansas City. But we had just so many players. We won it. We were part of the parade with Michael J. Fox before the Kentucky Derby. It was a big deal with the cup and all this, right? And I kid you not, like a day later, 2 days later, the owner calls us saying, that's it. We're done. And, you know, here I was moving back then. You guys probably don't know the name, but it's a good story because then the biggest rival who we just beat in the final, Kenton Invaders, owned by Greek family that had like million pizza places around, says, come on over and play for us. I'm like, all right, you know, they paid the money. The league had 4 teams. We played the entire season with 4 teams. I think we played each other like 6 times, like Fort Wayne, Milwaukee, Canton, Ohio, and I don't even remember the 4th. You'd have thought that I remember 4 teams, but so to
can't remember yesterday, Janusz. So
so loop it back. I just think we knew because, you know, coming off that World Cup, we knew that there was a lot of money, and I think there was this massive momentum, of course, if not when, right? So the league, although didn't start the year it's supposed to start, it finally did. And I think the difference is vast. I think the league was always pretty well organized. I'll give them that. And I have these arguments, you know how it is. You guys are a little bit, you've been here for a long time in North America, but you still have to have that fight with some of the folks in Europe, Major League Soccer, retirement. I don't put up with any of that. It's a great league. In my book, I put him top 5 for sure. If you look at the league overall, not just the talent and all that, top 5 in the world. There's a payment never missed. There's insurance. I mean, you know, I was just talking in Poland, great league, and there's still, you know, players are not getting paid on time sometimes, and there's probably a million leagues like that. So I think Major League Soccer, top 5 in terms of organization. I think they're on message. There are things that, of course, we all want to change because I think we long a little bit to where we all came from, right? That promotion, relegation. We're smart enough to know that this league is not built like that. It may take some time, if ever, but I still defend it at every corner.
So in the tough years, Janusz, maybe the early 2000s, who would you say were the major guys, franchises, people that were keeping it going, and what was the big turning point for Major League Soccer? And you know, you just said there you think it's top 5 in the world, which I think's, you know, a big statement. But how does it get even better? Where do we go? Is it youth development? How does this league become legitimately, you know, competing for the best players in the world when they're up for sale?
Well, I think money is important. With everything that's happening right now, it's going to be interesting how everything shakes out. I'm not saying that Major League Soccer all of a sudden is going to be the country that, you know, the money's going to be there. But I think if you're a player, Stevie, and you see this more and more in every team, I think there's more to just how great is the league. There's a certain level of player that will always stay in Premier League, whatever it may be, but there's a lot of players that value their family, they value the country, the continent, the way things, go about here. So I think you're going to see more and more people looking at that. And as the salaries grow, and let's face it, that's one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
As you've asked me before, when we played for peanuts for the most part, even some of the biggest guys. And I think that will grow because I think that culture is starting here. I mean, 25 years, that's not a long time when you compare it to England, to Poland, to just about anywhere, right? But I think that culture will grow more organically because that's what we're asking for, right? When a new team comes in, for example, like Atlanta when they came in, I even wondered, just the year before I played, I commentated New York Cosmos against Atlanta Silverbacks. There was a final, there was like 2,000 people there. The next year they have 70,000 people. I was like, where were those people? Eric Winalda was actually the general manager of the Silverbacks. And I remember with JP de la Camera, we're sitting there, it was full, but it's a small stadium. But I think there's more to it. That's not the plastic fans, if you will. I think that the sport is growing organically. And I think as it goes along, I think I have a lot of conversation with some notable players who are asking about Major League Soccer. They may not be ready to come in just yet, but more and more every year, people are sending, feelers, if you will. What is it like? I like it. And I think as we've seen it as an example, young players are coming in and maybe a little bit younger players are starting to come. And I think who's the best person, Jovinko, remember? I mean, he was a player 27 years old, right? Something like that, I think, who legitimately loved the league, loved the city of Toronto. I think, as far as I know, was very, very disappointed that he had to leave. So give it another few years, maybe they would have been able to offer him the money to stay again. And I think you're going to see that. How long is that going to take? I'm not so sure. Promotion, relegation, I'm all for it. I'm sure you guys are used to that as well, but I get it. I understand it. I've been here 30 years. I see NBA, I see NHL. It's just different, right? And why fight it? But with USL having so many teams right now, somewhere down the line, I could see some form of promotion relegation. And I think that would help the league, right? I mean, why not? When you go out there, you want to have a goal, right? So if you're playing in USL, it's not just the idea of, well, if an MLS team calls me, what if we earn it with my current team to get there? Wouldn't that be great?
Never going to happen though, is it, Janusz?
You know the answer to that. But you know what? I've made peace with that. Yeah. Maybe a few years back, I would have gone back to my European roots and knock it and maybe go on air and kind of, but I said, why? I mean, just take it for what it is. If you love the game, you love the game. If you live in a city where you have a franchise, go and support it, because I've been talking about, I'm still, now I have a USL team that, by the way, I haven't been to a game, but I will, get there as well, because that's one thing that I miss from being in Europe. When I wasn't playing, or when my dad was just going to the game, even to a rival stadium because there was a game. Yep. And I miss that tremendously. And I'm just, 2 hours from my old team, New England Revolution, 2 hours to New York. So it's not one of those where you just get on the subway and get to your game. But look, I'm not being paid by Major League Soccer. You guys know better. I've never worked there. It's so good. But I love it. I enjoy it. I hope it succeeds. Because why not? We live in this country. We want the game. We want the league to be successful, I would imagine.
I have to apologize because the Polish league isn't top of my list in terms of the league that are on my radar right now. So I know that you have a vested interest. Just let everybody know who's watching here what happened in terms of the Polish league with the pandemic coming in. Where are they at now? What's the state of play over there?
Well, I'm not either. I always I have to apologize when I talk about Polish league, because in our work I have to know everything and talk about everything but the Polish league. So I watch the national team religiously, the Polish national team, but I did watch recently. So look, they're back. They came back on the 29th. They were one of the first ones to announce, and actually they may be the first ones with fans. I think they're letting 25 or 30% of the fans in. As soon as I don't know if it's this weekend or the following weekend. So They're being very proactive. You know, still Legia Warsaw is, of course, the top dog. They just opened an academy, which is amazing. For a guy like me who hated Legia because I play for the rival team in the city, I respected them because, of course, they had so many great players, and my dad played against him and was friends with him. They just opened an academy, which is amazing. I mean, it's like you would think of the best academies in the world. So that's something, because all these years, or 100 years, they had this little pitch right next to their new stadium, and that was it. And now, you know, 10, 15 pitches and all the whistles and bells. So they're top of the league. I think they'll win it probably. But it looks good, and looks good. And they actually taken advantage of, as you've probably read it, of the lack of football, because now they've signed some television deals in countries that they probably wouldn't have dream of being at this stage of the season.
Well, listen, if we ever get a Polish league television contract, Janusz, you'll be our first call to come alongside myself and KJ on the desk.
Look, I just want to come to see. I just want to come to Toronto, and you know, I miss it. You know, I'm a big fan.
We miss you, buddy.
And Canada is very lucky to have you guys. I've said this privately to you guys and to others, and you're well respected here in the United States. If you were here, you'll be one of the top teams, at least in my book, and probably others. So I want to make a point of that because I always enjoy coming up there.
Enough about us. Let's talk about you. The last one from me is, you know, some of you guys know who's listening to the show. Janusz and I do shows together on Sirius, and he's a brilliant co-host because we do some Premier League shows every week, but we also do a show called Champions League.
My sounds.
Yeah, we've got all these sounds that we play in now for Janusz as well. He's got all these different things, the sound puts. But anyway, we have some fun. But the Champions League live show is the hardest show that we do because basically goals are flying in. I'm watching on laptops. Janusz has got games going on at ESPN. And we can't say the goals when they go in because you have to tease it. We throw to the games. So this guy is the master of the fill. So when I know that I'm trying to get all my notes together, I can throw. Honestly, Stevie, it's like having like Messi on the field. You know, you pass the ball, you just need him to keep the ball for a bit. I can pass the mic to this guy, Janusz.
Well, you know, I'm lucky. First of all, he's got a harder job. You imagine like goal every 20 seconds going in, and you have to set this up. And I mean, it takes somebody like him or Luke, Stevie. You and I can't even comprehend how to do that. But I'm lucky because I do this out of ESPN, and they do give me for that show. There's a couple of amazing studios, radio studios, with over 12 TVs in them. It's amazing. It's like it's crazy. So I can actually see all the games. Not only that, as you know, they're usually delayed. I have the real feed. Even the guys in the studio or cages like, no, I'm nowhere near that. And I see the goals ahead, and I forget myself sometimes. So when I see a goal going on, ooh, and everybody's in my ear, producers, shut up, be quiet. We don't know that yet. Who scored? They're asking me, so it's difficult. I don't do it purposely.
Laptop that he's got there, trying to get his streams working. KJ,
well, and KJ tells me that he's in Sirius, on his laptop with one feed, and then he's got like a highlight show that's 3 minutes late. So I do have an advantage, KJ. I'm sure you'd have done the same thing about it.
No, but you're great. Hey, we must, before we let you go, we have to get you a quick word on, first of all, you can talk Bayern if you want, because anytime you want to talk about Lewandowski, the floor is yours, because I know what you think of him. But Alphonso Davies playing your position, left back, what are you seeing from him?
Not as good as me, but listen.
Yeah, you were much quicker, Janusz, right? You were much quicker.
Much quicker, running backwards. But look, I mean, it's an amazing story. It really is, because I think the way he's developing is amazing. I think we all knew watching him that he's a real talent, right? And even when he kind of proved it maybe a little bit quicker than we thought, I still see, even within a game, never mind from game to game, but within a game, I mean, there's no possibility that he doesn't start for a foreseeable future. And you guys know him much better than I do, but I just noticed his decision-making is quickly changing, because he had that pace, almost as if he sometimes gets ahead of himself a little bit, where he has to slow down a little bit, take a look, and like, what do I do now? That's what I used to think about when he first got there, even with Vancouver as well. But now he gets to the byline, a little bit of feint, you can see the look. He doesn't just see one option, because very often, I remember as a fullback, sometimes you did something well and you're almost like happy about what you're doing. And you see that one option, but one option only. And you're convinced that you're going to get the ball there. But I think the best players know that the best option is there, but just in case, Stevie, you know, like sometimes you think you have 2 seconds, but a defender comes in and closes that option with one step, and you're like, oh man. So I watch him now because he's popular. So I think I better know what he's doing, right? And I think his decision making is improving vastly, more so. And it's not just from game to game. I see that confidence when he's playing right now. I think he's got to feel, he's probably saying to himself, you know what? Yeah, this is Bayern Munich, but I'm good enough. And once you are able to say that to yourself, don't listen to what others tell you. But once you know and you say to yourself, I know I'm good enough, then you can succeed, I think.
Thanks, Janusz. Great to catch up with you. Good to see you again. Go back and find out what chores you have to do for the afternoon, will you?
Nothing. Just you guys.
Great to see you, buddy.
Thanks, Janusz.
Thanks for having me on.
Janusz Michallik joining us on Footy Talks. That wraps up another episode. Always lots to talk about. It's been a good show once again. Thanks to Janusz. Thanks to Richie Laryea as well. And as we move forward towards next week, we know that more and more MLS teams are going to be back, KJ, and we're going to be getting much closer to seeing Major League Soccer back in Disney.
Yeah, and talking about, probably, I expect any minute now, really, that the format's going to be announced, the fixtures will be announced, and we'll know who's playing who at that point. I think there's a real desire from MLS to get that out as soon as we can. And then we can start talking about matchups, Stevie, and then suddenly talking about, I thought we'd be talking about the Euros. I've got my calendar on my desk here, and it's a big calendar, and I've got every game color-coded what's coming up in June, and I turned it over for June, and my heart just sank because I've got here Turkey versus Italy on Thursday next week, Wales, Switzerland, Denmark, Finland, Belgium, Russia, triple header next Saturday. It's all gone. So look, we're pretty useless at everything else, so just please give us some football to talk about.
We miss it for sure, but it's going to be great when that little tournament schedule comes out. We're going to get excited again. We're going to know when we're calling games, when we're doing shows. Can't wait to be back. Really missed it.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks,
and
Luke.
Thanks to everybody on Facebook and on Zoom as well for being with us. We'll see you again next week. I think we've got a pretty good guest already booked for next week. So make sure that you keep your eyes peeled to find out who is coming next week on Footy Talks. But for now,
thanks, everybody.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Be well.